Hello, everybody. This is John Lint, lead programmer of BB Digital Lab LLC, and you are listening to or watching the BB&J podcast. It is excellent to be reaching your eyes and ears as I say some weird variation of every week. Today, we're going to be talking about connecting with professionals on LinkedIn. So I've kind of talked about establishing and generating, publishing, and branded content on social media. I've kind of talked about getting out there on social media, connecting with professionals. So I'm doing something more specific this time around, and I'm talking about LinkedIn specifically. I have a colleague who was kind of was in the same boat as I was, a few months ago. Really up until I think around March, I had almost no social media activity whatsoever. And one day, through all these resources I just kind of been slowly accumulating, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be doing something. One of those things was LinkedIn. I had, I think, like 20 connections on LinkedIn. And didn't really focus on that. But more recently, thanks to a course that offered specific guidance on LinkedIn social networking and the platform, I have devoted a lot more resources to that. And I mean, I've seen great results. And for those of you who are watching, you may remember me wearing this shirt in last week's episode. I'm not recording these back to back. I just happen to have worn this shirt 2 weeks in a row. For those of you who are just listening, I'm wearing a 2019 Tour de Cape Girardeau t-shirt. It was a bike race I did. A lot of fun. I think it's going to be a little bit before I do a bike race again. I know a lot of times they're doing the the virtual competitions, which I'm really glad that they're taking this seriously. But no, I think it's important to recognize the organizations, institutions, the businesses, the individuals really who are taking quarantine, COVID, and this pandemic seriously. So like whenever I get the chance, I make sure to recognize the accomplishments of the individuals. Getting back onto the main topic of LinkedIn. So let's talk about the first step, getting started and joining. This is pretty simple. Like any social media platform, they make it pretty easy for you. I would personally recommend just doing it through your Google account. It makes integrating everything a lot simpler. You don't even have to do a special username or password. It just pulls it in. Of course, you have some degree of control over changing your name and whatnot later on. But it means that if you go to another computer, you don't have to remember yours. I'm one of those people who has a special password for everything that's a random mishmash of characters and symbols. So I don't remember most of my passwords off the top of my head. Google can be a lot easier because you sign in on that and boom, you have access to LinkedIn. But I think you can do it through Facebook and a few other social, networking platforms or social platforms. I'm sure Yahoo. But as long as you have an email and password you're interested in, you can get on LinkedIn. It's very easy. It's a social media platform. It's professional oriented, but it is a social media platform, so it's supposed to be easy. And getting those first steps of getting started, that is really just making sure that all of your information is there. All of your basic information is correct and as precise as possible. So if someone were to search you, they could find you. I know some people like to keep their LinkedIn profiles private. I understand why they would want to do that. However, you are severely limiting what you can get out of a platform like LinkedIn by having your profile private. That's one of those things that it really does come down to context in your situation. But I would say more times than not, it's better to have it your profile as being public, so that people can access you, and you have better access to people as well. Because scalable growth is a key factor on a lot of social media that people don't recognize. Like, I mean, I know I keep saying this, but on LinkedIn, yes, it is a professional social media networking platform, but it's still a social media platform. And some of the rules still apply. Now, we always talk about I always talk about the 80-20 rule of 80% personal content, 20% branded content. That number is going to be a lot different with LinkedIn for obvious reasons, because it's professional. You're not going to be posting what you ate. I like to post content about the tea that I drink. I just like, I'm a man who likes variety in tea. I'm not particularly discerning, but I do post about that periodically. That's never going on LinkedIn though. I mean, what what goes on LinkedIn for me? This podcast actually, and hopefully some of you have actually found me through LinkedIn of this one. I'm sure I'll do my darndest to make sure it's distributed there. But so there, I personally, I do the podcast. I do some of my social media articles that I post. If some of you may remember, I used to go to Flipboard for the podcast, and like get an article and talk about it. Well, I still go to Flipboard. I just use it to find and to basically use for distribution branded industry specific content. And that's part of that branding, that brand voice, and that position of authority and credibility that you wanted to establish that I've discussed in previous podcasts. So, yeah, the first steps though, you actually have to have an account, and one that people can find you and reach you on, because that gives people a better understanding of who you are as a professional. But once you've got that first step, once you've joined and you've gotten started, what do you do? The next step is filling out your profile. This isn't just like doing your username and your image. Those are the bare minimum requirements to exist as someone who doesn't look like a bot on any platform, but LinkedIn especially. Now, the difference between LinkedIn and something like Facebook, or especially Instagram, Twitter or TikTok, is the bio, so to speak, the bio section, the professional stuff. That is, I would honestly say, more important than the content you're putting out. Content you're putting out, it's good for people who are relatively active on the platform, because that means you're engaging with them more. But a lot of people are on LinkedIn like just to make those connections. They're not engaging with the platform. Maybe, and they're probably just going there to look people up, So filling out that additional content, things like your description or your bio, things like your work experience, make sure those are up to date. If you stopped working as a food delivery 10 years ago, but you still have it as listed as active, well, that's a problem, especially if you're applying for, I don't know, a job in tech. So make sure that your work history is as up to date as possible. If you change a job, make sure that you go, I mean, this is true of any social media platform. I know, or at least like Facebook, I know they have, you can list what job you have. but LinkedIn is especially critical that you have your things as up to date as possible. So if you switch jobs, if you decide to move on from something, make sure that you, like, as soon as humanly possible, update your LinkedIn. So kind of getting into some of the other content that I was talking about that you need to have on your profile. When I talk about the bio or the description, it's not like, like I wouldn't put grew up in Carbondale, went to the community high school, SIU. Now I'm hanging out in Heron. How's it going, guys? you know, you need to be professional, but engaging. Critically with your bio. I could say, 2015 graduated high school, 20. I guess it was spring of 2020. 2020 graduated college. Now I'm working as lead programmer at BB Digital Lab LLC. But that's a terrible bio. People are going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess this is what they did. But that's in your work experience. You need to make sure when you're doing this, when you're making your bio, that, above all else, because there's tons of guides you can find of different things to include, different verbiage. But the most important thing that you need to do above all else is have an engaging bio. So, while keeping professionalism in mind, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be swearing in your LinkedIn profile. But what you should be doing is hyping yourself up, talking about your credibility, talking about your experience, talking to your ideal customer or client or employer. Like if you really want to get into video game design and you're like, I really want to work with Bethesda. I think they're an awesome company and I really want to get in there and design video games with them. Well, if you apply for a job with them, there's a good chance that they're going to go to your social media profiles and they're going to say, especially your LinkedIn profile. They're going to look at all your social media profiles, but they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile, and you want to stand out because with all of these major video game companies, there's a lot of other people applying. This is a very competitive market. So they want to know what makes you special, because the degrees, the certifications, a lot of people will have that. What makes you unique is not, these are almost proof of performance. These are the minimum requirements. What makes you unique is you, and you need to be broadcasting and showcasing you as a person, you as a professional in your LinkedIn description, in your LinkedIn bio. This doesn't have to be a 20-page paper, but it can't be 3 sentences either. You need to take them on a journey, tell them a story, tell them why they should care, tell them why you would be excellent to work with. If I was wanting to work at Bethesda, I would want someone who, the recruiter or the hiring person who is looking at my profile, to see my LinkedIn thing and say, wow, this is someone who would be really great for the company, who I would genuinely enjoy working with. This is someone who has their eye on the prize, that those things that I'm looking for in this hiring process, they're showcasing. I can tell that they're aware of it, and they are utilizing these skills and these traits to their fullest potential. You won't necessarily be able to prove all of that with your description, but you need that. You need to have that journey. I know I gave a pretty broad range of, like, not 3 sentences, but not 13 pages, but it should be at least a 2 to 3 paragraph description. As I said, I mean, don't add a ton of, if you find yourself adding fat, well, don't do that. There's not a minimum word count for this. It's not due by Friday night at midnight, but you need to have precisely what needs to be there and include the information that you need to, but do it in an engaging way. And above all else, do it in a way that tells a story of you as a professional. Let's move on to the next step. So you've got your rock star description. You've got that secondary information, the where you've worked and all that, up to date and with as much information as you can give, because anything that's left out or left blank is going to look unprofessional and sloppy. You don't want to look sloppy, especially on LinkedIn. I know I keep saying that, but like I really need to hammer home. I've been seeing LinkedIn posts of people talking about like how there's been more unprofessional content, and I'm like, guys, what is wrong with you? Why are you posting these things on LinkedIn? It's LinkedIn. So if I can just dissuade one person from posting, I don't know, going out to the bar with friends on their LinkedIn page, I will have done my job. Keep it professional. Keep it engaging. Keep it inspiring. Keep it storytelling, but keep it professional. Please, guys. Okay? So I mentioned the biggest reason that people go on LinkedIn. There are absolutely people who go on there regularly. The people that use it as a professional social media platform, for posting and all that. I'm one of those people, and I engage with that content. But the majority of the people are just there to look up people, whether it's people they're working with, people they're interested in working with, hiring, working for, whatever that may be. So connecting with people on LinkedIn is a critical part of making professional connections. Now, that might be part of the process where you're already established with them and you're taking those next steps, or it could be that initial connection that you make. So if you have a networking event and you find which you should absolutely know the names of the people, at the very least, learn the names, but ideally you should be getting business cards at whatever, at some point. I'm sure we'll have in-person networking events again. When those happen, get those business cards. And what's the first thing you should be doing? Going to LinkedIn and connecting with them. In general, the easiest way to reach, for example, what we primarily target, medical practices. A lot of the work that we do, a lot of our the clients we work with are medical practices. So one of the things that I do on LinkedIn as part of that prospecting process is reaching out and connecting with people who own medical practices on LinkedIn. And that's not just sending that connection request. I mean, that is the basis. That is the fundamental step. But beyond that, establishing those conversations, it is a extremely valuable and vital way to reach out to people, especially in this modern day and age where so much is remote, where so many in-person events just aren't a thing anymore. You can no longer rely on word of mouth to expand your network. You have to use platforms like LinkedIn to do that. And what's great about these platforms, what's great about, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, is that they're free. You don't have to pay money to get on this. And you can connect with almost any professional that you want to. So why wouldn't you? I guess my analogy of or my metaphor of the week is working at Bethesda. If I was working at Bethesda, I would want to connect with the people there. I would want to learn about what they're posting, get an idea of what because it helps you understand what they're looking for, what the environment's like, what you can be expecting if you are actually going to be working there. So but critically, connecting with people who work at there would be great for me if I was going to apply, because especially if I've been already messaging them, or at the bare minimum connected with them recently, but ideally showing up on their feeds in other ways, then by the time I walk in the interview, they already know me. Oh, hey, that's John from LinkedIn. He's the guy who's always posting about This Week in Web Design, or oh yeah, I've seen his podcast because he posts it. But they're not going to see that stuff if you're not connected with them. So you need to connect with as many people. Now, I will note, if you do blind connects, as in you just hit the connect button and you don't do anything else, people are inclined to say, I don't know this person, because especially if they don't actually know you, because then it's like, oh, I'm just getting a random friend request. And then if you get reported, your account can actually suffer a penalty. But luckily, there's an extremely easy way to deal with this: sending a note. This is extremely simple. It is just, you say, in my case, I'll usually say, hey, I came across your profile and I noticed that we're both in this field. So like if I was connecting with another web designer, for example, I'd say, hey, I noticed we're both web designers and I thought it'd be mutually beneficial for us to connect. Don't focus, for that initial connection request, don't focus on the sales process. Don't like try to make that hard sell right off the bat, because then people are going to think you're a bot. People are going to be more hesitant to connect with you, and you do want to expand your circle as much as you can, because if I do this and I say, if I go to some random person that I want to work with, and I say, hey, I thought I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn, they might do it. If they see, oh, hey, I have 6-8 connections in common, well, that's going to make me look a lot more appealing. Oh, well, these 8 people that I am connected with, they're also connected with, so I think I could trust them. People act like the rules of social media don't apply on LinkedIn because, oh, it's professional, so it's boring. It's not. Like on Facebook, you see that thing of, oh, you have X number of mutual friends, and that is a deciding factor of whether or not you accept the friend request, because that is like, you mentally do a calculation of, is this like a bot based on that number. That doesn't go away when you're on LinkedIn. As much as some people wouldn't want it to be, it is still a social media platform. I'm trying to hammer this home. Treat it like it's a professional social media networking platform. Okay. So you've made the connections. You've sent out the personalized requests. At least at the bare minimum, include their name. Like if I was sending one to myself, I guess I'd say, hey, John, I know we're both web designers. I thought it'd be mutually I was looking to connect with you. Simple. It's just a sentence, but they're going to be like, oh, hey, they're not connecting with me because they think they know me. They're connecting with me because they recognize who I am as a professional. Easy peasy. Beyond that, there's that, I did mention establishing those communications, especially with people that you want to connect with in real life. Very important. But for now, it's just, you need to actually make the connection. I've definitely met a lot of people who don't know what to post on LinkedIn. I do hear that a lot. Like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to post. Because they're used to, they think of social media as like, oh, this is where I post what I ate, or this is where I post the trip I took, which is, that's good content to post, just not on LinkedIn. And they know that, but they don't know what they should be posting. So if you're not really sure, or you're a little hesitant, the first thing you can do, and a very scalable thing you can do that doesn't require a ton of pre-processing for you, is just engaging with existing content. That's a great way to engage with people that you've connected with. I've talked about making that first connection. Well, a great way to stay on people's stay in people's notifications, so to speak, is by liking posts, is by commenting on posts, is sharing. And then if you're sharing someone's post, boom, you have content on your feed, or on the stuff you're now putting out content. And it is creating a lot of connections, because people are seeing that you like their post. They're seeing that you share it. And you're allowing for even more conversations to happen for multiple people in the comment section. And as long as these conversations are professional, this is going to be of great benefit to you and make you stand out in a way that is traditionally considered very challenging on social media, where there is that kind of impersonalized abstraction. But they see your image, they see your name, and they're having a conversation with you. It's not as good as a one-on-one, but it's extremely vital, especially right now. So, that's really all there is to engaging with branded content. The one thing I'll note is, make sure that it is branded content. You do want to have some stuff of recognizing and acknowledging the achievements of others as well as yourself. Especially if someone mentions you in a post, absolutely share that, absolutely comment on that and like that. But if it's industry specific content, going to my Bethesda stuff, if one of the developers of Bethesda posted this big article, I would engage with that, because that's important content. Or even just industry content, predictions for how the gaming industry will adapt for 2021. That's great content to engage with, and that's going to look really good for you, because it's going to highlight your brand, who you are as a professional. But liking a post, sharing a post, even commenting is easy. It's safe. But I'm going to end this podcast with a challenge for you. I want you to actually make your own posts. It might take some time to figure out what you really want to post regularly, but let me get you started. Because these are things that you should be posting. These are things that are worthy of posting, that, you should absolutely be celebrating and acknowledging. Wins, business wins. If you're really excited that you nailed that interview, you nailed that job, you nailed that sales call, post it. It's okay to brag about yourself every once in a while. It's okay to recognize your accomplishments. I think that there's this great focus on being humble, but it's humbleness to beyond just to a fault. You're not even recognizing what you've done, and that only ends up hurting you. It's hard for me too, but you got to do it. The core idea is posting branded content. I've talked about branded content, but branded content specific for this platform. There is, you do have the whole thing of you have that core idea, celebrating your accomplishments, celebrating your wins. You also have just content that you've produced, professional content you've produced. If you have a podcast, which you should have a podcast, post that on LinkedIn. It does, I don't think you can do the full video, but you can do clips, you can do GIFs, you can do links to the YouTube, you can do the thumbnail with a link. You should ideally have a thumbnail. If you can, by all means, you should probably pay someone to do that because you want it to look good, obviously. I personally write the periodic blog post around the mostly around the podcast, just because it's easy. I post that. I cross post that to LinkedIn. So if you're producing professional content, that 100% needs to be on LinkedIn because it's professional content, but it also showcases you as a person and your work. Another thing that I've mentioned before, I'll mention again, very easy to do, posting industry articles. So I go to Flipboard a lot and I'll find articles that, in web design, for example, mostly in web design, that I find interesting, that I find engaging, that I think others in my industry might find interesting. But more than anything, it's showcasing what, like I said, what I just said, what I find interesting. It's showcasing that I have an eye for content, that I'm staying up to date with information, that I'm learning, that I'm taking in new information. It's part of building that brand, and it's very easy because you don't have to write the article yourself. You should write the article yourself, but I understand that that's not what everyone's looking to do. The final option you have is the more, I guess you could say, like traditional, almost like Facebook posts. These, you need to be careful about how you do these, because there is that the importance of professionalism, the importance of staying on subject, on brand. But if you are able to use those posts to do things like highlight your wins, highlight your accomplishments, highlight what you've been working on, or try to engage with other people, that asking questions, asking not necessarily broad questions, but questions that a lot of people could answer in your industry, is a great way to get a lot of engagement, and it is a great way to get people engaging with your content. So that's definitely something that you can be doing to build that brand. So I'm going to leave it off there. That is my challenge to you. Make sure all the other stuff is good, but my challenge is actually start posting on LinkedIn. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening or watching or somewhere in the middle. Don't forget to leave a comment. You can do that on whatever platform you're watching it on. You can also go to bbdigitallab.com/podcast. There we have a little contact us form where you can leave your comment, your question, your suggestion. If you have something that you'd like me to talk about in the podcast or something you'd like me to revisit, absolutely let me know. And I will do what I can to incorporate that, or I'll do my best to get back to you. And yeah, I would like to, like I said, thank you for someone for watching, and I will make sure, I will hope to see you all next week.